I think we should begin now and more people can keep on joining in. So thanks for joining in, everyone. My name is Pranav. And today we'd be talking about Slack for HR and people operations folks. So let's start off. I'll just share my screen with you guys and then we'd begin. Right. So, yep. So, we'll be talking about Slack best practices for HR and people ops teams. The agenda for today is actually quite packed. We'd be talking about who we are, and then we'd be visiting some tips and tricks, some specialized areas of people ops like hiring, new employee onboarding, time and attendance, and HR help desk. Right. So all of these issues. Before we begin, can I just request everyone to mute themselves? Everybody, could you please mute yourselves, and whenever you have to ask a question, then we can go ahead and unmute ourselves. Thank you very much. So the agenda for today is quite packed. We would be moving a little fast. But first, let's begin by talking a bit about ourselves. So we are Anaek, and we are a company that specializes in making people management software for Slack and other instant messaging systems. So we've got those three products right there. So those are Attendance Bot, Office Amp, and ExpenseTron. And we'd be exploring each of these products quite a bit during the webinar. Can everybody please mute themselves? Can everybody please mute themselves? I request everybody to please mute themselves. Thank you. Yep. So beginning with some of the HR-based procedures over here. So we'd be first talking about some tips and tricks inside Slack. The idea is to make Slack more efficient for you guys and also more personalized to you guys. So let me just come to Slack. So over here, what we'd be talking about first is how do you go across and change your theme. So you can just go to the profile section within your Slack account, and you could just go ahead and you could go to preferences, and then you could just go ahead and visit themes right here. And then you can choose a particular theme from the themes that you see over here to personalize your Slack. Once you save changes, you'd be done and you'd be able to have a particular theme for Slack. So for example, say I want to change the theme to this. So I can just save this. I can just go across and save changes right here. And people would be able to view this theme, right? Similarly, inside Slack, what you can do is that you can go ahead and have custom emojis and custom messages. So you could just go to customize Slack right here, and then you can put in some custom emojis. So if you have any company value that you want to denote by an emoji, or if you have any messages that you want to add over here, you can just go ahead and do that. So for example, if you see over here, what I have done is that I have added our company logo right here. And whenever you want to say that to the bot, what you can do is that you can just send it across on a channel, and you can just say that I want to say Anaek, and so yeah, you can just send that out onto a particular channel, right? In a similar fashion, what you can do is that you can have custom messages inside Slack. Now Slack gives you a lot of preset messages within its interface, but what you can also do is that should you want to have any custom messages over here, you can go ahead and do that as well. You can just add your message in this section, and you can go ahead and have custom messages inside Slack. What we'd also be visiting is that you have the capability to create channels over here. So you can go ahead and create both public and private channels. You can mark the channel as public, or you can just make it private. You can define the purpose of the channel, and then you can go about adding people to that particular channel. Any questions so far? We have a question. So we put our, okay, great. So Jatin has a question regarding values. Jatin, would you like to unmute yourself and ask your question?
No, I was just saying that we have actually put our values there in the
Yep.
loading messages. So every time all employees log in,
Yep.
they'll be able to see our values displaying instead of Slack's default messages.
Oh, that's great. Yep, you could
Yeah,
also go ahead and do that. That actually is a
yeah.
great idea. I think we've got one more question. Yeah, that is a great idea. Thanks, Tracy. So let's just move ahead. We would now go ahead and talk about managing notifications inside Slack. I do realize that Slack at times can get a bit noisy. So what you can do is that you can absolutely manage the noise within Slack. What we suggest is that you should feel free to go ahead and leave channels that you don't want to be a part of, and then at a later point what you can do is that you can just join back, and all of the conversation that has happened on the channel in the meantime, you can just go ahead and revisit that. If you want to mute notifications from a particular channel, what you can do is that you can just go to that particular channel, click on the settings icon right here, and you can mute that particular channel, or you could go ahead and have the notification preferences right here, and you can manage the notifications from this particular page. You could also go ahead and manage notifications within Slack from devices. So all the notifications that you want on the mobile devices, or all the notifications that you want on your desktop, you can just go ahead and manage that. Uh, do we have a question? Okay. So moving ahead, we've talked about some of the tips and tricks inside Slack. There are some other things that I'd like to tell you. So what you can do is that over here, you can just pin post to a channel. So if you just like to keep a company logo or an onboarding guide or something like that pinned to a particular channel, you can just go ahead and do that by pinning a certain post to a particular channel, right? Moving forward now, what we'd be talking about are some of the hiring related best practices. So let me just go ahead and pull up that screen. Uh, do we have a question? Yep. Oh, great. Great. So Jatin's team seems to be interacting with Slack quite a lot. So yep, you can go ahead and have shared channels inside Slack as well, and you can go ahead and use those to interact with your vendors and other people within the organization. Um, since we have come to the end of tips and tricks, I'd want to check if there are any questions at this point. Otherwise, we could just move ahead. We do have a question. Yes, of course. So this is a recorded session. We would be sending it across to you. We would be sending the recording across to you after the presentation. Any questions at this point? Any questions? Okay, seems like there are no questions. So let me just go ahead and now visit the um, hiring section. Allow me a moment. Is everybody able to see my screen? Sorry. Yep. So over here, we'd now be talking about some of the hiring best practices within Slack. What we suggest you do is that you go ahead and have a few channels from within Slack. So you can go ahead and put up, different channels. So what I have done for my team is that we've got various channels inside Slack. You can have a channel, a private channel called hiring needs, and that's specifically for the people ops folks. And you can just go ahead and coordinate your pipeline and collaborate on what hiring needs does the company have, and what are the descriptions, job descriptions for various openings that you may have in the future. You can then go ahead and have a public channel, which is called Open Jobs, and then collect referrals from all over the organization. So this is where the employees go in and make referrals, and you can just collect referrals from all over the organization. This, of course, has to be a public channel. You can again have an interview channel, so you can just schedule interview for every hire, and then discuss various things related to the new hire interview on that particular channel, and then you can archive this channel after each hire, right? So this again has to be a private channel. And finally, the compensation channel, which again is private information, so you can just go ahead and discuss new offers over there, and have a compensation structure for the new hires within the organization. If you need more help regarding recruitment, what you can do is that you can use Lever and Greenhouse, which are two tools that I'm really fond of. Both have their Slack add-ons, and so you can just go ahead and add them to your Slack, and they would make your recruitment process more structured. So Lever, by the way, would allow you to allot scores to particular employees, and then Greenhouse would help you to decide upon what sort of compensations do you want to go out and give to them. So that's about hiring inside Slack. I would also like to mention over here that since we since this is a webinar that's meant for HR and people ops folks, we are primarily talking about Slack, but some of these ideas are equally applicable to other platforms like Google Chat and Microsoft Teams. And time to time, I'd be talking about some of those platforms as well. Now, here's how Slack uses Slack to onboard their new hires. So what Slack does is that they have got a dedicated workspace for new hires, and they have got various channels that are dedicated to each of the cohorts. And then what you can do is that there are different channels, and a list of channel is provided to the new hires, and this the new hires gain access to this dedicated workspace 2 weeks before they start. And just to make sure that the onboarding process is on track, they get regular reminders on this particular channel to go ahead and this particular workspace to go ahead and complete some of the onboarded related tasks, right? And then you can also go ahead and have various channels related to various issues, like uh, the onboarding related channel, then channels related to where do you want to live in New York or San Francisco, and where are the cool places to eat. So you can go ahead and do that. At this point, I think we do have a question. Great. So you can also go ahead and have channels related to various new hire issues. So you can have a channel wherein you can just send out blurbs about the new hires, and then everybody can go ahead and welcome the new hires on to the team. You can also go ahead and have various onboarding related documents onto a particular channel, and you can pin those documents on the channel as we discussed earlier, and the new hires can just come on board and have a look at these documents and know the best practices that are prevalent within the organization. If you need more onboarding help, there is a very cool tool that I'd like to suggest, and that is again a Slack tool. So there is a tool called Donut. So you can just go ahead and create customized onboarding plans within Donut, and you can use that to send out regular reminders to your new hires, and then new hires would be required to complete these onboarding plans within 30-day or a 60-day period, whatever is the rule within the organization. And then they can just complete the process, and their managers would get a notification related to that. Any questions so far? Great. We can move forward. So after hiring and onboarding, now we'd be talking about some employee engagement related tools, right? So employee engagement is all about sensing how employees react to a particular situation or a particular uh, issue, right? So what is the employee sentiment related to the employee autonomy within the organization, or what is the employee sentiment related to the management, and what is the employee sentiment related to the training and learning initiatives that are happening within the organization. So it is a really good idea to capture all these employee sentiments. And so to do that, you can make use of a tool that is called Poly. Poly is a tool that would help you to send out a question to the workforce at large, and then you can just go ahead, either strongly agree, or be neutral to that particular question. And based on the responses that you receive from your employees, we would show you over the Poly would show you over time that what is the employee sentiment on a particular issue, right? So this tool really comes in handy if you want to gauge employee engagement, and I would suggest that you go ahead and give it a try. Any questions so far before we move on? No. Great. So moving on, now we'd be talking about time and attendance within Slack. This is a part that a lot of HR teams struggle with. So we'd be giving special emphasis to um, vacation management, time management within Slack, and some of the employee scheduling features. Uh, some of them, yes, some of them may be paid. Some of them may be paid tools. I do not really have a grip on what their pricing specifically is, but yeah, some of them may be paid tools. You can go ahead and use them inside Slack, and I think they would have monthly and annual plans. So you can go out and check out their pricing on various on their websites. Uh, Great. So moving on to attendance and time tracking within Slack, we've got an in-house tool called Attendance Bot, and what you can do over Attendance Bot is that you can send out simple messages to the bot and create PTO and vacation request, clock in, clock out on a daily basis, right? So attendance bot has two specific aspects. One is the time management bit, and another is the vacation management bit. The way the vacation management functions is that you can send out simple messages to the bot, like out of office 20th September to 23rd September, and the bot is going to send that vacation request to your reporting manager, who can then approve or deny the request. Once the manager approves or deny the request, on the employee screen, you'd be able to see that your vacation has been approved. What attendance bot can also do automatically is that most of us have approval rules related to specific vacations. So attendance bot can handle approval rules and vacation quotas as well. So you can have different offices within attendance bot, and you can have different approval rules for different offices. You can also have different vacation quotas associated with different leave types. So if you want to go ahead and put in a quota for vacation, sick time off, maternity leave, paternity leave, and then subsequently you can also have leave types like work from home, working remotely, traveling, which may not have any vacation quotas. Additionally, what you can also do is that you can set these leave types to approval required or approval not required. The idea being that if there are work from home requests, or if they're working remotely requests, you don't always want the reporting manager to be flooded with approval requests. So you can just set those leave types to approval not required as a best practice, wherein what we would do is that we would not send out approval notification, but we would also go ahead and send out an FYI to that particular manager that this employee is working from home today, or this person is traveling and is working from another office. Uh, the employees subsequently can also go ahead and check their balances. So they can just say my balance to the bot, and they can check that for various leave types, what are the balances that I have got left. There are also some really strong reporting features that we offer. So you can go ahead and pull up various reports within the bot. You can pull up a report that gives you all the data related to the clock in, clock out of the employees. You can pull up reports related to all the leaves that the employees have taken. And you can also pull up reports related to the balances that the various employees have got left. Any questions so far? So, while we would like to integrate with a lot of tools around the world, it is not always possible to do a handshake with them on a technical level. So, what we do is that we give you all of your data, like the timesheet reports, the leave reports, and the payroll reports in a CSV format that can be easily digested by any other software or tool that you're trying to sync it up to. What we also do is that we've got Zapier API. So in case other tools have integrations with Zapier, you can go ahead and do an integration with Attendance Bot. We've got another question. Yep. So let's just go ahead and talk about transparency. So once you've generated all the reports within Attendance Bot, then what you can go ahead and do is that you can configure announcements and notifications within Attendance Bot. Now, if you've got channels inside Slack, the idea is that all of the team should be on the same page regarding who is in office and who is out of office, or who's punching in and punching out. So all of the team should be on the same page regarding that, which is why we've got a feature called announcements and notifications, wherein you can just invite Attendance Bot to a particular channel, and we can choose to broadcast that information onto a particular channel. Now, announcements can vary. You can set up different types of announcements within Attendance Bot. You can set up announcements related to upcoming vacations. You can set up announcements related to clocking in, clocking out of your employees. You can set up announcements related to work anniversaries and birthdays, right? But the idea remains the same, to maintain transparency within the organization and keep everyone on the same page. You can also go ahead and check the team calendar that we've plugged into the Attendance Bot admin panel. And over here, you would be able to see all of the vacations that your employees have created, and you would also be able to see the holidays that your employees have that are tagged to your particular office, right? So you can just go ahead and check, scroll through the calendar and check that how many people are out of office in a particular week or in a particular month. You can also go ahead and say summary to the bot, and you can check what are the absence summary for your team. So we'd show you the absence summary for your team today. We'd show you the absence summary for your team tomorrow, and we'll show you the recent and upcoming leaves of your employees, right? So this is about maintaining how Attendance Bot maintains transparency within the organization. Any questions so far before we move forward? Great. So now we'll go ahead and visit the time tracking bit. Once you have installed Attendance Bot onto your Slack, what you can do is that you can just send simple in and out messages to the bot, and the bot will clock in, clock out based on that. You can then subsequently go ahead and generate your timesheets within the bot. So you can, if you want to check that how many hours have I worked during the day, you can just say timesheet to the bot, and the bot will show you your punch log for the whole day. You can also go ahead and say lunch and break to the bot, and you can just go ahead and take a coffee break or a lunch break with that. At a later point, if you forget to punch in and punch out at a later point, you can just go back and edit your punches as well. As a manager or as an admin, what you'd be able to see is that we've got a punch board wherein all the employees that are currently working, that are currently out, or are on a break, would be visible over here. So this gives you a bird's eye view of the working summary of your team. So you'd be able to know that how many employees are currently working, how many employees are currently on a break, and how many of them are punched out. Uh, Using one of our other products, we've got a question. Yes, so you can go ahead and track multiple projects through attendance bot as well, and it's very simple and intuitive to do that. So what you can do is that you can set up multiple projects within attendance bot, and then employees can punch in, punch out for those particular projects, and subsequently on the project tracking dashboard, you'd be able to know how many hours has an employee devoted to a particular project. And in a similar fashion, what you can do is that you can also set up clients. So if suppose I want to punch in for a customer support project related to Amazon, then you can go ahead and do that, and subsequently you would know that how many hours are to be billed to a particular client, and you can go ahead and do that. Great. uh, All right. So now we'll be talking about how Office AMP as a tool, takes addresses some of the HR FAQs that we may have, right? So a large part of our day goes in answering questions that employees ask related to pay slips, onboarding documents, hiring documents, procedures within the organization, etc. So we've built this in-house tool called Office Amp, which you can just add to Slack. And what this would do is that this you can just go ahead and create some of the FAQs within our knowledge base section, and this will aim at auto resolving all of the questions that employees ask on a day-to-day basis. So an employee could just send out a question to the bot saying that where are the employee benefits, or where can I generate my payslip, or you can just send in a question saying how can I book a meeting room, and all the questions of that sort, and the bot will be able to auto resolve those questions. So the employee doesn't have to walk over to your desk or email you or Slack you. The employees find their question right there and then. This is one of my favorite features within Office Amp, and it's really a useful tool. So I would suggest that all of you over here do go ahead and give Office Amp a try, specifically how the knowledge base functions. uh, so you can also go ahead and manage some of the HR requests within Office AMP. The whole idea of Office AMP is that you can create tickets or requests within the system, and then they'll be assigned to the various category owners and the category managers, right? So you can go ahead and say that I need new business cards, or I need to travel to a certain conference, so you have to book tickets for me or something like that. So you can just uh, create tickets related to that, and that they will be assigned to the associated category managers, and the category managers can start working on those particular issues. Once the category manager starts working on that particular issue, they can also send out updates or ask for more information to the employees, and then subsequently they can just go ahead and resolve the issue when they have taken care of the ticket that has been raised. Any questions so far before we move ahead to the expense tracking section? Cool. No questions. So moving on, we'll go ahead and visit the expense tracking section over here. So you can go ahead and send out simple messages to a bot called ExpenseTron, which you can just add to your Slack, and then you can just create expenses based on that. One of the coolest features over here is that you can go ahead and upload a receipt associated with an expense. And it's just a one-click receipt upload system that we have, right? So once you create an expense, you upload a receipt associated with that particular expense. And once you confirm the expense is sent across to your manager, who can then approve or deny the expense. You can also go ahead and create mileage expenses within ExpenseTron. So if you just say to the bot something like that, I drove from New York to Boston for n number of miles. Uh, what you can do is that you can fix up a mileage rate, and then we'll calculate the amount for you automatically. And you can choose to bill it to your company card or your personal card or any other payment method. uh, what's great about ExpenseTron is not only the intuitive interface, but also the fact that if you're a team that spends in multiple currencies, you can go ahead and create expenses in multiple currencies. So you can have USD as your primary currency, and then whenever you put in an expense associated with another currency, saying $25 25 Canadian dollars for Uber, then what we do is that we can convert the Canadian dollar amount to the US dollar amount. So you can create mileage expenses, you can create expenses in multiple currencies, and this has a really intuitive UI. And the best part is that all of it is right within Slack. So if you're a team that's Slack heavy, you can just go ahead and give attendance bot, office amp, and expense tron a try. Uh, Now we go on to a tool that is called Lunch Train. So what you can do is that, Lunch Train is a tool that you can add to your Slack, and whenever there are any new hires that are heading out for lunch to a particular place, they can just put that on, and their more employees can just go ahead and board the train. So this is just for, new hires who've moved into a new city. They can just go ahead and put it out, and people can just join them for lunch. Now we'd be talking about some of the really useful integrations from within Slack. Um, each of us use calendars day in and day out, whether it's a Google Calendar or an Outlook calendar. We use calendars day in and day out. And what you can do is that you can just integrate your calendar with Slack. And the idea of that being that whenever you've got an event scheduled, or whenever there are upcoming events onto your calendar, you get Slack notifications related to that, and then you can get notifications related to what your plan for the day is today, and you can view all of that within from within Slack, and you can also confirm particular events from within Slack. Similarly, Google Drive is another tool that I use day in and day out. It's a tool that I absolutely love. So you can go ahead and integrate Google Drive with Slack as well. And whenever somebody uploads a document or updates a document, you'd get a notification related to that on your Slack. So these are two integrations that I think would be really useful for all of the people over here. Now we talk about creating some more channels to maintain a healthy work culture within the organization. So what I have particularly done for my team is that, I have created channels for each of the cohorts. So for example, the marketing team has a channel called, marketing and sales wins or whatever. And then whenever we onboard a new customer, or whenever a new customer pays up, we celebrate that on that particular channel. Similarly, for the product team, you can have a channel related to new product launches, and then you can go ahead and brainstorm about that specific product launch on that particular channel, and then you can also celebrate that new product launches on that particular channel. You can also create channels related to something like employee of the month, or diversity groups, volunteer programs, or professional development groups within the organization. You can also create Ask Me Anything channels, which would mean that the management can go ahead and answer all of the questions that the employees have related to the organization, right? And it gives the employees an opportunity to interact with the senior management, and also know more about the company culture, and the vision of the organization, and where are we headed, all of that. So now, just summing up all we have discussed, there were quite a few tools that we'd visited, but summing up, Slack is the perfect tool to transfer all of your HR and people operations related tasks to, and it makes all of your HR and people operations related tasks really efficient. At the same time, ensuring transparency. If you make use of channels effectively. So it ensures transparency within the organization. And overall, it makes the HR and people ops process very efficient, and also very engaging for the employee. So you can go ahead and use Slack for your HR and people ops related tasks. And I think the major takeaways that we have from this webinar are, of course, that you can use some of the tools that we highlighted in this webinar for hiring and onboarding procedures. Then you can do attendance tracking through attendance bot. You can also go ahead and do help desk management through office amp, managing all of your HR requests. You can go ahead and do expense tracking within expense tron. And then two of the integrations that we talked about was integrating your calendar and integrating your Google Drive. So I think with that, I'm pretty much at the end of this presentation. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those for you. Yep, that's a great idea. Women only Slack private channel. Yep. Uh, an interesting anecdote on that, Jatin. So, like the previous organization that I used to work for had various channels related to, the ethnic groups that were in their organization, and then they used to go ahead and discuss a lot of stuff on those channels as well. Any questions? For women only. That's great. So I'm really happy to see that a lot of people over here in this webinar are already using Slack in a really effective way. And it's absolutely wonderful to see that, channels are already in use, and channels is something that you guys are using really effectively. What I would suggest as a next step would be to transfer some of your people ops actions onto Slack. Uh, Great. So, if there are no questions, I think we've come to the end of the webinar. Should you have any questions at a later point, you can always reach out to us. And this was a recorded session, so we'd be sending out a recording of this webinar to you. And in case you install any of the products that we talked about, attendance bot, expense tron, and office amp, then we can sync up on a one-on-one basis as well, and discuss more about your requirements and how the products can address your requirements. So thanks a lot for joining in. I really appreciate all of your time, and we'd be having some webinars that are coming up in the future as well, so be on the lookout for that and join in. You've been a great audience, and it was great having you. So have a great day ahead, and I'd see you around sometime. Thanks.